October 1st, 2010, from the stylish high-tech underground studios of Ribbit Media in globally warmed Warwick, Rhode Island, this is NewsUndies.
For October 1st, 2010, this is NewsUndies, all the news that shouldn't be news. I'm Paul Torville with these headlines. Bush tax cuts could still sunset. Just kidding. Now that he's made his billions, Bill Gates advocates income tax increase on wealthy. Recession over? American public suddenly unconvinced of economists' expertise. CNN commentator Avlon says Daily Show's Stewart has right idea. Obama's grasp on obvious rivals Boheners calls Fox News destructive to America. New survey suggests great swaths of America far dumber than dirt. Dancing with the Stars. Hey gang, it's time for celebrity birthdays once again. I got my cake hat on. Let's rock. For Saturday the 25th, Ethel Rosenberg, dead, and Shel Silverstein, dead. For Sunday the 26th, T.S. Eliot, dead, and Pope Paul VI, dead. For Monday the 27th, Samuel Adams, dead, and Meatloaf. For Tuesday the 28th, Ed Sullivan, dead, and Ben E. King, not dead. For Wednesday the 29th, Jerry Lee Lewis and Andrew Dice Clay, neither of them are dead. For Thursday the 30th, William Wrigley Jr., dead, and Buddy Rich, dead. For Friday the 1st, Ted Healy, dead, and Jimmy Carter, not dead. That's Celebrity Birthdays. I'm Paul Torville, and I'm done! We'll have stories in detail right after this. You'll notice that when you watch NewsUndies, I'm always wearing a shirt from the Ursus Pacificus Kitsch Cave. Well, now you can too. You can help support NewsUndies by going to the Ursus Pacificus Kitsch Cave and getting some kitsch. Stephen Colbert testified before a House Judiciary Subcommittee about dependence on and mistreatment of migrant farm workers at the invitation of Representative Zoe Lofgren, Democrat from California. John Boehner, House Minority Leader, has charged that having the comedian to testify was inappropriate and an embarrassment. Well, yes, it was embarrassing. It was embarrassing that Democrat from Michigan John Conyers asked Colbert to just leave the room and turn in his written testimony. It's embarrassing that these stuffed shirt empty suits have the nerve to speak as if they know something firsthand about working in a field. It's embarrassing that our country is so f***ed up. Eddie Long, pastor of the Atlanta area New Birth Missionary Baptist Church, has been accused of sexual assault against young male parishioners, and at least 4 have filed suit against him, charging that Long had at various times taken them on trips both inside and outside the U.S., shared rooms with them, and engaged in sexual contact with them, including masturbation and oral sex. At least one of the plaintiffs has accused Long of supplying him with a prescription sleep aid. There are also allegations that Long used church funds to try to ply the plaintiffs with money, cars, and jewelry. Long stated in a 20-minute address that he felt like David against Goliath, which makes perfect sense since he's the one with the money, power, and influence, and the plaintiffs in these suits are not. Perfectly sensible and rational. Yep, no flaws with that analogy. Whoops. Not analogy. How about simile? Lindsay freaking Lohan. A fictional wheelchair-bound Muslim teenage bilateral amputee with superpowers is the next awesome superhero to come down the pike. The creation of this character arises from a meeting of disabled Syrian and American youths organized in Damascus by U.S. philanthropist and businessman J.T. Snyder. It would seem that Snyder himself could simply do the Batman thing, but no. How about using handicapped kids to create the religio-political equivalent of Captain Planet? That'll fix everything! A new cancer treatment called Provenge runs about $100,000 to gain between 4 months and a year of additional life. Cancer treatment and life extension raise important questions, especially when costs are this high. What does this mean? Here are Pig and Sheep with their thoughts.
Human life is precious, and so there's no limit to how much money can or should be spent to prolong life, no matter how miserable or painful it is. Amen. Woo!
I can't speak for anyone else, but for me, quality of life is paramount. If I have to pull down the rest of society in order to get a few weeks or months of life dominated by hospital visits and unbearable discomfort, I think I'll pass. Just give me a chance to get my affairs in order and exit gracefully. That's really all I want.
That's what Pig and Sheep think. What are your thoughts? Email them to ovcomments@newsundies.com. And now, here's Moose Weintraub with the Sports Half Minute.
Moose Weintraub Sports Half Minute. It's a whole half minute of sports. 30 seconds of sports. Moose Weintraub Sports Half Minute.
Here's your Sports Half Minute. I'm Moose Weintraub. Fistball, a hybrid of tennis and volleyball, is gaining in popularity, but not so much with men, for obvious reasons.
Moose Weintraub Sports Half Minute.
Thanks, Moose. Always a great report from Moose. We'll have your exclusive pastcast weather and the final news roundup right after this.
There's something for nearly everyone in every weekly episode of News Undies. There's opposing viewpoints with Pig and Sheep, Moose Weintraub Sports Half Minute, and the exclusive pastcast weather for your part of the country. Unless you happen to live in Alaska or Hawaii, in which case you're on your own. Where was I? News Undies weekly show comes out Friday. Subscribe on YouTube. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. Share with your friends. News Undies every Friday at NewsUndies.com. Check it out!
And now here's your exclusive pastcast weather for the week ending Friday, October 1st, 2010.
In Texas and Oklahoma, it was sunny and warm, then thunderstorms, then sunny and cool. In the High Plains, it was sunny and warm, then cool. The Intermountain region saw sunny and warm conditions.
And that's your exclusive pastcast weather. Eddie Long. A Trenton, Maine youth, Stephen Bunker, 17, stopped to render assistance to an apparently injured seagull on the side of the road. He picked up the bird and took it with him into the cab of his GMC pickup. The bird came to and began flapping around inside the cab, causing irresistible distraction to Bunker, who tried to calm the bird down and restrain it. As any rational third-party observer would expect, Bunker lost control of the truck, sheared off a utility pole, and came to rest in a ditch. The moral of the story? There's a reason they're called wild animals. And finally, and I do mean finally, we all saw this coming, didn't we? Most of the rest of the journalistic world has been reporting on this on and off for at least the last 3 decades or so. Fox News? Not so much. On the one hand, it seemed they'd have to wake up to it sooner or later. On the other hand, with its occasional veiled fundamentalist Christian bent, it seemed entirely likely that this would never see daylight on Fox News. Since the Reagan administration, America has been drifting toward a more religious and less scientific mindset. While some in the faith community claim that religion and science are not at odds, it is clear that deep religious conviction is at best counterproductive to the pursuit of scientific understanding. Now, congressional Republicans, many known for conservative and pro-Christian positions on most issues, are speaking out about America's declining performance in science and engineering. At this rate, we can expect them to begin expressing worry about global warming right after New York City's public library is inundated by the rising Atlantic. The federal government failed us when they let the Apollo program die. America's enthusiasm for science and engineering exploded with Kennedy's commitment to reach the moon. America's failure to set new goals beyond the moon, and instead choosing to pursue meddling in petty earthly squabbles among peoples who neither wanted nor needed our interference. Now, America's mental capacity to compete with hungry developing countries like China and India is atrophied and emaciated from disuse. Today, America is an intellectual Walter Hudson, bloated and weighed down with useless dogma, while the intellectual musculature beneath can barely muster the power to scratch its own nose. Well, that's all for this edition of News Undies. Remember, News Undies is a weekly show, and we'll be back on Friday, October 8th with fresh undies. If you see news that shouldn't be news, email your story tips to undies@newsundies.com. Thanks for watching. Until next time, I'm Paul Torville. After that, I might be struggling to scratch my own nose.